Hey everyone, so this is my Glock 19 pistol. I recently had a family member who purchased the same style of pistol and wanted to know, some specifics on how to clean it and questions regarding that. So here I have my pistol. I'm just making a video on how I personally clean and handle my firearm, and hopefully my video can help anyone else that has any questions regarding the same thing. So first things first, you're going to take the magazine out. If you carry around in the chamber like I do, you are going to clear that and make your weapon safe. Be sure when you're making your weapon safe, you're checking the chamber, checking the magazine well, and I like to rack the slide a few times, point in a safe direction, and fire to ensure that your weapon is safe. I also then keep the magazine or any ammo away from my cleaning platform, and just to ensure that they're not mixed in the same area and it is a safe environment to do the cleaning in. Alright, to start your disassembly, you are going to pull the trigger. After pulling the trigger, you are going to hold down the slide release. Now it's on both sides of the frame. You're going to pinch those firmly, and as you move the slide just slightly down, you're going to pull down on that and it releases the upper slide. It's very simple. Next, you have your guide rod right there. You're just going to push in from the bottom. That spring pushes in, and as you push in, it just pops off. For me, since I have an extended barrel, I have to screw the end of that off. Normally, if you don't, this is not a step that you have to do, but for me, I just have to screw the end of this off, and then once that's off, that barrel just slides right out, and I set that aside. Now the first step, besides disassembly with cleaning, is using a solvent. So I use Frog Lube Super Degreaser. It's just an industrial level solvent. I pour that in this container over here with equal parts water, and once I get all the parts, I just plop them in there and let them sit and soak as such. Now, to remove the internal pieces of the frame, what you're going to have to do is remove the housing pins. For the 19X, I have a pin right above the trigger, and I have a pin right near the rear. You see it right there. So some older models, or just other models in general of the Glock, have 3 pins instead of 2, but the 19X has 2. And if you can get yourself a pin punch kit, those come in really helpful. So I'm going to take my punch kit, get the size that I need. I elevate it on the slide so that way there's space in the bottom for the pin to move. I align that. I just use this little flathead screwdriver and just tap, tap, tap. And those go through real nicely. As you can see how they come through on the other side. So I can typically just take that, kind of twist, and it'll pull right out. Second one here just needs a little bit more work because it didn't have that much room to push through. And there we go, it comes right out. These 2 pins alone hold everything into that frame. So I'm going to set those aside. Don't want to lose those. Okay, next is your pin housing. Okay, it kind of looks like a big U. It's just right there at the very top. So this is why I keep a flathead screwdriver. It makes removing it super easy. You just come in from the rear, right under there. See if I can show you a little bit better. And I just use the leverage from the end of the pistol, and it just pops it right up. From there I can just grab it and pull it right out. So I'm going to set that aside. Next is your slide lock levers. Now on the 19X, they are ambidextrous, so you have them right there on both sides. You can just pinch them and they come out. You can even use just one side and it just comes right out. Nothing is really holding it in. It's very easy. Next is going to be the trigger housing unit, and it's all connected. So your trigger's right there. It comes up to your bar. I'll show you right here. So there's your trigger. It goes alongside this bar, which goes into the housing group, and it all comes out as one piece. So just kind of wiggle. Sometimes you got to wiggle, and then you just reach in there, and there you go. And as you can see, the frame of my pistol is clear. Nothing else needs to be taken out. Now what I do with the trigger housing group is I remove the lever and the trigger all from the housing group in the back. It's real simple. It just has some notches and a spring in place, and you just kind of move it at an angle and it comes right out. It's very easy to put back in and take out. Once I've done that, I'm going to take all those pieces and I'm going to let them sit in the solvent. What the solvent does is it soaks into those pieces and it helps break down the carbon, the gunshot residue, anything that's left over that can just be gunking up those parts, and it makes them super easy to clean and get all that stuff off later. That way you're working with a clean surface when you reapply your lubricant or oil. So I'm going to get this nylon brush, I'm just going to wet it with the solvent right here, and I'm going to start scrubbing the inside of my slide. And my nylon brush on the other end is just a smaller, thinner brush. Kind of helps get in those crevices, tight corners, to help a little bit easier. Now, not a lot of people scrub the inside of their frame. There is quite a bit of carbon that can build up right around the back of where that trigger is. So I do try to get a good cleaning in there. Alright, so typically your gun cleaning kit will come with some like patches and wipes and all that. I go ahead and I usually buy some shotgun cleaning patches, cotton kits. I just like them because they're usually just a little bit thicker than the basic pistol ones, a little bit larger. They do the exact same job, and you don't have to go through as many patches as you would if you just used the pistol ones. So that's just my preference. And something I like to do is I just put the cloth on the end of the bristles and use that to kind of build friction as I'm wiping it down. Just sometimes easier to get in those crevices instead of sticking your finger in there with a wipe. And this helps you just get a little bit more force on it when you're scrubbing. And then something you can do with those really tight corners right there, right behind the trigger, is I just get that thin punch kit and I start poking away in those corners with that patch, and that kind of helps get that carbon out of those deep corners. So here you can see some residue I picked up, cleaned off. So I'm going to see if I can show you on camera. It's kind of a little dark, but right where the firing pin fires through, that is usually where you're going to see the most carbon residue on your slide. And so that's a big place that you really want to clean and focus some aggressive scrubbing and get that nice and clean. And so, like I said, all I'm doing right now is just ensuring that I'm cleaning whatever residue is still inside the slide right now. That way, when I apply my lubricant, it's applying on a clean surface and keeps everything operating smoothly and protects the firearm. So as we can see now, I'm hardly coming up with any residue, and that's what you want to see. That means I have clean surface and I'm good to go. So next, now that my parts have been soaking, I'm going to start taking them out one by one and just giving them some attention, scrubbing them down, and making sure that each of these pieces are clean of residue. Given my pistol really wasn't that dirty before this cleaning, it did have some residue in it, but nothing major. So these pieces probably aren't going to have that much residue. But given if you have gone to the range a couple times and you're cleaning, you are going to have quite a bit of residue on some of these parts, especially just in the tiny crevices. So you do want to give good attention to these smaller parts as well. Alright, now after all that, we move on to the barrel, which is where some of the most important cleaning is done. So right now I'm just going to focus on a quick scrub of the outside, making sure everything's good, and then we move on to the inside of the barrel. Alright, now that that is scrubbed down, let's see if I can show the inside of the barrel here. Focus in. So you can see those grooves. Trying to get it focused just right. There we go. Well, here we go. So you can see those grooves in there, some water droplets from the solvent. Those will get out. But we really want to make sure that we get the inside of that smooth, clean. Those grooves are nice and clean, and you don't want anything inside of that barrel. So here what I use is a snake bore. It is way easier than using the guide rod with the copper brush attachment and the cotton brush attachment. It's just super easy. Here you got the weight that goes in the barrel. Once the weight goes through, you have the beginning of the snake bore. Here you see the copper brush bristles that help clean out the barrel, move any gunk along, and then the rest of the material moves things. And then right there at the end where it expands, that's where you're going to put your lube or your oil, and that way it coats it with your lubricant there at the end. And you can pass it through as many times as you like. I won't have to pass it through too many times, but just as an example, here the weight goes through at the end. You just start fishing it through. Once I get that through, I'm going to pull on the weight string. As I pull, you'll see it moves through. Just reapply my grip and just move the rest of it through the barrel just like that. So, to prep the snake bore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my lubricant, which, like I said, I use Frog Lubes. This is the Frog Lube Extreme Lubricant. It is fantastic. It smells great. It kind of has like a minty smell, so your wife or significant other isn't going to complain too hard when you're cleaning the firearm in the house. Creates a great protective coat and just does what it is intended to do. Fantastic. So, like I said, right here on the end is where I'm going to apply a good amount of that lubricant. Alright, so like I said, I'm just going to drop that weight in. You see it just falls right through the barrel. I don't have quite the camera space to try to get this all in frame, but once I get it set up, you'll see. So I just push it right through, slides in, cleans it out, then applies that lubricant. And you can do this as many times as you like until you're satisfied with it. I'll run it through a few times. Like I said, my pistol was not that dirty, but just apply a good coat in there. And here you can see on the end, it doesn't have any of that excess. It's pretty much applied throughout the inside of that barrel. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of wiping off any excess that might be right there at the beginning. And then I can use any excess and reapply some lube. I'm just going to put a very thin layer on the outside of that barrel. This just keeps it nice and protected, and while it's moving, having things moved against it, keeps everything operating smoothly. So here you can see the inside. If I can get that camera just lined up and focused just right again, there you go. See how nice and crisp it is on the inside? You see those grooves? So that is a job well done in my book. Alright, so now I am just going to be applying the rest of this lubrication to the smaller parts we have here. Like I said, just a protective coat, keeps all those smaller parts as they move to keep friction to a minimum and just everything operating as smoothly as it can. Nothing crazy. I'll either use my fingers, as you see here, to rub it on there, and occasionally the cotton patch. I can use that as well. Okay, so with the trigger housing group part that we kept over here, this area right here, this little metal piece is the only piece that really needs to apply lubricant to, nothing crazy. So I'm just going to use the cotton patch right here and just make sure that that is well coated in lubrication. And at this point, I will start to put the pieces back together. Okay, so now we're going to be putting these parts back in. It's just kind of the reverse process of how we took them out. First with that trigger housing unit. Okay, so it all goes in together. Sometimes you just got to find that right angle at first, but once you get that angle just right, it just slides right in. So right here, the front of it, the angle isn't right, so I just got to move that right in and push down. So there you have it. Once my trigger's in, I see that it's seated properly. I'm going to grab the slide lock levers. As easy it was taking them out, just as easy putting it in. The top of it, as you see, it just goes right in front of that trigger and just drops in. Next is going to be the pin housing. It goes right into its slot. You just push that right in. No resistance. Just goes right in place. Too easy. Next we have those pins that we set aside. That's going to keep everything nice and secure. So my main pin isn't going in, so sometimes you just kind of have to apply a little bit of pressure on some parts, get that opening just right where that pin is at, and then it should just go right in just like it does right here. There you have it. All of those components are in and secure. Now we're going to move on to the slide. So I'm just going to apply some lubrication right there on the inside and make sure that that is applied nice and evenly. And then what I'm doing is just any excess, like I said, just thin coat right there on the outer layer, just to protect the slide. Alright, now that that lubrication is added, we're just going to put our pieces back in. So the barrel just slides in, rock that back and forth. For me, since it's extended, I just got to put that cap back on. Now it's going to be our guide rod. We're just going to line that up. And then there on the bottom, you're just going to push in with your thumb and it should be seated right there on that step. It'll be the second step. Now you're just going to take the slide and align it with the frame and slide it back. Sometimes it likes to catch. Just make sure that you get it right and it will slide right back, just like that. Now that the pistol has been charged, I'm just going to press the trigger, do a functionality test. I do that a few times, make sure everything's working properly, and I'm hearing that nice, satisfying click when I pull the trigger. So the last thing I do to finish it up is I just get a polishing rag, and I like to just finish it off with giving my firearm a nice wipe down, cleaning it up, and my job is done. Well, there you have it. My pistol's clean, functions as it should, and hopefully this video has helped answer any questions you have about cleaning your firearm.